All right, we gotta make sure everybody's muted. So let's see, is everybody muted? I mean, you guys are good. You're getting good at this. Okay. All right. Oh
We
my
can
gosh, we
definitely
didn't turn the
have a
chat off.
dance
And now
troupe.
we're talking about a dance group. For
Yep.
the love of God. For the
Yes.
love of God. Okay.
I'm admitting people, Amy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm working on getting out of here. And all right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the end of the week. Now where you been? Well, now it's Feedback Friday, so come on in. Come sit down and stare at your screen. We got a presenter that you never seen. We're Feedback Friday, we're on the loose. We'll be the train, you be the caboose. It's Feedback Friday with Kathy and Amy. Mashed potatoes and the gravy. It's Feedback Friday all day long. Feedback, feedback, Feedback Friday.
Well, thank you, Amy, and good morning. It is Feedback Friday number 42. This is our 42nd episode. Amy, you're going to have to admit people because I can't admit people in chat at the same time. It's our 42nd episode, and I just sneezed like 5 times, so that's why I'm all stuffed up again. Welcome. I'm Kathy Hattori, president of Botanical Colors, and along with Amy Dufault, we're here to host this week's episode of Feedback Friday, which is our weekly show where we speak with artists, activists, dyers, scholars, researchers, growers, anyone who's interested in natural color and textiles. And so before we start, I just want to say thank you to everybody for helping keep us through 42 episodes of Feedback Friday. And it's been with your continued support and interest that has allowed us to just keep going. The momentum is growing, and it's just amazing to see how it's really starting to change. And as Amy mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we're getting more and more people watching the show. So it's fantastic. Thank you very much. And before let's see, what else? Oh, for a little housekeeping, Amy is going to be your moderator, and we will ask you to mute during the presentation. And then after we open up the chat, you can pose your questions to Sarah and Jess in the chat. And then at the very end, we all unmute and we chat and talk. And some people start singing, gets pretty wild. So that'll be at the end of the presentation. So I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We have twin sisters, Sarah Pottle and Jess Boeke from Cleveland, Ohio. They are natural dyers and activists and are the co-founders of the Rust Belt Fibershed. So it's super interesting how fiber sheds are cropping up all over. I believe there's over 50 different fiber sheds internationally. And even though each fiber shed has its they all prescribe to certain standards in terms of what they're trying to do. Each has its own regional flavor that makes them fascinating to hear about. So very exciting to hear about Ohio and that region because we don't get a lot of information. And so this will be a treat for us. Sarah and Jess are going to share how natural dyes, textiles, and community projects can be one effective entry point into systemic change. They're doing a number of different projects, one about alpaca, another 1 year, one outfit project. So I'm really interested to hear what they're doing in their area. And they're going to discuss how stewardship is the anchor of their projects and how integrating relationships with both people and the beauty of a place can transform some very siloed, separate mechanical systems and turn them into regenerative living ecosystems. This call is being recorded, so we'll have a video presentation ready for you at the end of the week. Any information that we've discussed in this call, links, websites, that kind of stuff will be also part of the blog post that has the video link, as well as, I think that's where it all sits now. We don't send around a separate newsletter, but so that's where it's going to be. So we're just going to seg into the presentation. Amy, you are laughing at me. Stop laughing at me.
I'm just laughing with other people.
Oh, you
I'm like
are.
the
You're
kid-
all
I'm like
laughing
the
at
kid
me.
at the back of the class who's talking too much and the teacher gets mad. I never got good marks in self-control.
I have never gotten a good mark in self-control. It's okay. It's okay. We're all there with you. So Sarah and Jess, welcome. It's wonderful to have you, and take it away.
Thank you. All right, let me share my screen here. Get us all set up. Can you see that? Are we good?
Yep.
All right. So thank you, first of all, so much to Kathy and Amy for having us here. If you had told us years back that we'd be on something sponsored by Botanical Colors, we'd have been like, oh my gosh. We're just really, really stoked about this opportunity. There's been so many wonderful speakers. We're just honored to sort of be among the ranks of folks that have been on here, and to get to talk more with you all that have been really propping up this Feedback Friday experiment, and just kind of interacting a little bit.
Yeah, and also to have fun.
Yeah, Feedback Friday. So yeah, I'm Sarah. This is Jess. We are twins. Jess currently has bangs, which is a helpful differentiator for both of us right now. But let's get into it. So we're speaking to you today from the unceded territory of the Mississauga and the Erie Nations, which is widely known as Cleveland, Ohio. And that's where that red little dot is, right there on your screen. And the red circle that you see there shows the Rust Belt Fibershed, which is the fiber shed that we're representing here today. And we'll talk about that more later. There are fiber sheds within fiber sheds. What we're talking about in terms of like the Rust Belt Fibershed is an official sort of affiliate out of the California capital F Fibershed, I guess you could say. So we grew up here in this general area where this red dot is. And after about a decade stint in Baltimore, both of us at overlapping times, we ended up back here again. So for those of you that are more coast oriented, this big white space on like above the red dot, that is the Lake Erie, one of our Great Lakes. It's very, very important to us. And we think of ourselves as sort of like the North Coast, maybe some of your East Coast, West Coast, we think of ourselves as a coast as well. But our watershed is really important to us and has a lot to do with the projects that we do here, because it is just such an important part of the vitality of our ecosystem here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too. But we're going to take you through our story of plant color and local textiles. And we're going to share how Natural Dyes has really kind of framed the way that we see ourselves and our community and our connections to that community and our connections to nature. And it's worked to bridge a lot of the gaps in terms of thinking about how we organize around projects and what is interesting to people. And what gets people, thinking about a system or thinking about something in a way that they haven't thought about it before, maybe. And so, yeah, we're going to start off with something, a specific system that most of you probably remember yourselves, maybe apathetically, maybe as someone sitting in the back of the classroom getting poor marks on self-control or something. Maybe some bright spots sprinkled in. We're going to start actually by talking about something that maybe you didn't expect here today, which is the public education system. Jess, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so just a sec about public school, and we promise that it'll all circle back to dyes. As we said, we grew up in Cleveland, and I graduated a year earlier than Sarah with my degree in education and moved out to Baltimore to teach. And then Sarah joined me a year later after graduating with a teaching degree as well. And if you've ever had the privilege in working in public education, you know that it is a lot of work.
Those are my essays there.
Yeah, you can see, I think there's a growler in the background there. It's a lot. But, there are two main reasons why we want to start this conversation off talking about teaching and the educational system. And, you know, for a talk, especially on natural dyes, why are we doing this? So first, you know, is that the educational system, like so many other systems, including our fiber system, is deeply in need of stewards who are connected to self and to community and to the earth. And, you know, this is all true in all sorts of systems and healthcare and the food systems. And Sarah and I are really interested in the intersection of all of those systems. And we think that's kind of where the real magic can happen. So yes, at times in a talk about natural dyes, it seems right to bring in other systems. And, you know, if you look at the above diagram, if you've ever worked with natural dyes, especially if you're a beginner, you may have approached it with a very linear thinking process, right? You know, like if I use X amount of mordant per weight of fabric, I should get X color. And, you know, then you quickly realize that, you know, natural dyes, you know, we're working with a living system, with living things, not a mechanical system. So actually, natural dyes belongs more on the right-hand side of that chart than the linear thinking side. You know, so many inputs and variables and entry points and endpoints, and natural dyes can allow us to give up a little bit of that dominion. And instead of being a part of a complex system, you know, or dominating that complex system, we're really working with that system. Yeah. And for some of us, you know, we're very comfortable with the traditional system on the left-hand side here. And that's the way that schools work. You know, maybe it's because we've been educated in the way we've mostly all of us been educated. You know, the way that we get our clothing, the way that we get our food, it's very much linear thinking. You know, that's what we've grown up with. Yeah. And so looking toward the right-hand side, it can seem a little bit intimidating. You know, we like predictability, but natural dyes, working with them is really such a wonderful metaphor or practice, or even, yeah, totally, to help us get about, you know, working with and getting comfortable with unpredictability, actually, instead of, you know, trying with so much, you know, wasted energy maybe to control everything, and dominate our lives with our own choices. You know, we can really kind of loosen the grip on that a little bit. And the second reason we're bringing up teaching is because the progress in teaching can often feel quite intangible. You know, shaping young minds is not necessarily instant gratification, as all of you parents probably know. You know, the payout is the long haul. And so, you know, that's really what led us into the textile world, is that craving for something tangible. So over a decade ago, we started upholstering really out of a need for tangible transformation in our hands. And, you know, finding an old chair with some really great bones, you know, worked with us for some time. You know, it was satisfying to give something another life form. Yeah. You know, here we are. Sarah's on the left. I'm on the right hand side. Don't get confused. Sarah has the bangs in this photo. It's been a while. We've switched it around a bit. But you know, it's a lot of labor, of course, reupholstering something that you want in your living room as a permanent fixture, and finding the right fabric can be very challenging. And you know, we got to a point where anything that we could buy just started looking like it was from a Panera Bread or something. So, you know, also when we were starting to think about the fabric choices, you know, we started coming across, you know, what fire retardant sprays and all the ingredients in these synthetic fabrics. And then, you know, we started looking a little bit more at the weaves of the fabric and why that was important for upholstery. And it really broke down the fibers for us into this like really interesting new world of textiles. And we started bumping around the internet a bit, looking for some great fabric, and started finding people who were making fabric, and then learning about fabric construction. And we joined weaving guilds and really kind of fell down that rabbit hole pretty hard of textiles. And, you know, we, of course, soon found natural dyes, and we were floored by the fact that we'd never seen that before. Yeah. And that you can dye things with plants. It was crazy. We were amazed. Yeah. And then interestingly, we brought this idea back home when we came back to visit Cleveland from Baltimore. And we were just talking about it with my grandma, and she was like, oh, she's like, when, you know, in the 1920s, when she was a kid, you know, her family would use natural or use, you know, table scraps, compost scraps, onion peels to dye things. And she told us of a memory that she had where she was playing with her friends, and she was wearing an onion skin dyed dress, and I don't know if it was hanging to cure and she hadn't washed or whatever it would have been, but it started to rain really hard and the dye started to run down her legs and she was just mortified. And so I guess, I don't know, is it in our blood or maybe, but oh, I didn't sorry. So yeah, then pokeberry was our first dye. We started small with pokeberry as a we had a terrible result.
Yes, it was bad.
On cotton, on unwarranted cotton, which we let dry on a rusty tomato cage. So this picture here, I think, is right when we brought it out of the dye bath and we hadn't yet rinsed it, and it was with one of those really cool Instagram filters back in 2012.
That makes it very vibrant, much more vibrant than it was.
But this is our first one, so we were really stoked about it. But the flop still didn't discourage us. We were still intensely intrigued. And then, it was cool because we realized that we could over dye it. And again, this goes back to that idea of circularity, of systems thinking. Instead of thinking that this is the intended endpoint, it could be the middle somewhere, ready to be transformed into something new, something exciting, or even a possible future flop, who knows? But the cool thing is that circularity, that there's never really a failure as an endpoint there. Oh yeah, and so then we started looking at our veggie gardens, at our compost heaps and all of that stuff with a different lens. And we studied a lot at TAC. We took buses from Baltimore up to New York. So you probably recognize that building on the left-hand side there, many of you. And then I think Jenny Dean was our first natural dye book. So it just felt like we couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah, and then we also found that video of Sasha Dora on YouTube.
Oh,
remember, way back in the day.
Yeah, that was
we watched that on repeat for a while. Yeah.
So natural dyes, they helped us really meet some of the best people in our lives also. It's very cool. We were talking to Kathy and Amy on Wednesday a little bit about natural dyes as that portal to like all the good things in life. And, we couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Maybe you feel the same way. So for us, natural dyes really became this start, or, maybe you call it like an awakening or slowing down, I don't know, but like of just like noticing things. We started looking at different things differently. So looking at table scraps as having, more use before the compost, right? Or looking at, I remember driving down a highway in North Carolina and looking at the goldenrod that just lined the highway for like forever. It seemed like it was August maybe. And just being like, so much color here. There's so much abundance of color. And naturally we started just sharing this information with other people, just being like, this is magic. You guys have to check this out. And at first people were like, and you've probably experienced this too, if you've talked to anybody about natural dyes, they're just like, what do you mean? Plants making dye? Like what? And, there's like this point of confusion and like, I don't understand what you're talking about, but it usually ends in like, that is really cool. Like that is really something like very neat. And, so we had both eventually at this time, this was maybe like 2013, we started getting natural dyes. Around 2015, we started really teaching. And we kind of had this, we eventually made our way back to Cleveland at different times, but eventually, had this crazy obsession with natural dyes that we were sort of nursing and natural fibers, and that turned into natural materials. And we started doing what we do well, which is, really focusing on sort of the teaching part of dyeing as opposed to any production of anything. And we kept noticing that folks were like, moths to a flame here on natural dyes. Once we were able to open up people's eyes to it, it was like opening, like we said on Wednesday, this portal into another world that was right under your nose that you never even knew remotely existed. Like people generally understand, painting. Even if you talk about painting with earth pigments or using like watercolor, like that's still like beyond a lot of people what they normally think of. But when you talk about putting that on clothing or textiles, it becomes like this whole other world. And so we started setting up workshops really wherever we could, just like free things like, hey, we're going to have on the left-hand side here.
So fun.
It was like, we're going to have a couple dye pots on some crab burners by the lake, you know, on Saturday. If anybody wants to come, we're throwing in, you know, sumac, and you can come and bring an old t-shirt. And it was just really great to be able to like have an event where people would come to be like, whoa, use something differently. And so we've kind of used that model quite a bit, and just having community dye pots and thinking about like how we can use that as a source of community as well. We started attending a lot of like festivals just to kind of get people thinking about things that were maybe at a festival for something else. And we were this like, you know, they usually stuck us by the porta potties, but we got a lot of traffic that way, so we didn't really care. Oops. Okay, and so, you know, here are just some snaps of some other, you know, really lovely like educational events that we were honored to be able to host for people. Just we ended up partnering with a lot of people, which is really the best way that we could have done these workshops. If we had tried to set it all up on our own, we wouldn't have been able to do nearly as much. So everything here is a partnership with somebody who is doing something else. And we're like, hey, can we bring our dye pots? Or, you know, we have like this picture in the bottom left there. That's a florist, a bundle dye workshop with a florist who had some flowers that she wasn't going to use. We're like, let's do a flower workshop. You know, walnut inks printing on the bottom, the center bottom. On the top right, we actually, on the top right, keep doing that. Going for a trip here. On the top right, we actually have done this a couple of times, and it's been so fun to go to a public park in our area and just, you know, pop it on Instagram, say, hey, we're doing like a natural dye walk, sort of like just like a nature walk, but with a purpose for noticing our natural dyes. And one of the attendees that had come one time, who turned into a really great friend of ours, you know, she said that when she first pulled it, when we were leaving, like after the dye walk, she said she first pulled up to that park, and it was mid-July, and she's like, I didn't know what to expect. Like I pulled in and I was like, what are we doing here? Because it's just green trees, green grass, green taller grass over there, maybe some green bushes over there. But she was really floored, and this goes back to how natural dyes just really opens up your eyes to what is around you, kind of like wakes you up a little bit. She's like, I was floored by like the little tiny things that I just didn't take the time to see, and certainly didn't understand that they could be utilized for something so, you know, so beautiful. And it's sort of like, you know, if you're looking at like you look at something in a vegetable garden, right? You're looking at a tomato, you're like, that's a tomato. I can understand what that tomato would taste like, or like a squash. Maybe you've never had it before, but you get it. But like, what does jewel weed look like on wool? You know, like that's a question, right? And so it just really brings out the curiosity in folks, and that has really been our experience in such a wonderful opportunity for us to like meet people too, and just have these important conversations. So we quickly found out that it was really just so tricky to talk about natural dyes without talking about natural fiber. And as gardeners and folks who have volunteered on organic farms, we started thinking like, I wonder, you know, where is this fiber grown? I wonder what those growing practices are like. And we started doing some digging and looking at like, can we buy local linen? Can we buy whatever? And that's where we started finding the organization Fibershed, maybe back in like 2015. And we were just like, holy moly. And we went down that rabbit hole hard ourselves as a learner, and then also infusing some of those things as we kept teaching natural dyes. And slowly but surely, the whole system kind of started unraveling for us. And it became really challenging for us to talk about natural fiber, then without talking also about not using pesticides or tons of fossil fuel or to harvest it or water to irrigate. And then it became really challenging not to fully immerse ourselves in the detrimental practices of industrial agriculture and our consumer culture and our fast fashion economy. And then once we started sorting that out, you know, it became challenging to talk about, you know, producing fiber in the right way, which would maybe only be affordable for people who have a lot of means to pay a lot of money for a particular garment, and certainly not for people without those means, who could very much so benefit from a garment that's full of life and color and beauty, and like real like tangible fibers that were grown
And, you know, and I think like that just started like thinking down even that rabbit hole again of like, well, then where are those made? And it's actually made by people who are, you know, getting pennies to make these products, and in the meanwhile disrupting and hurting their own ecosystem by harmful runoff and, you know, all of that stuff. And so we just started seeing the intersections of health and climate and economy and justice and education. And man, like, are all these systems really, you know, overlapping here? And yeah, so then in, I think she said late 2017, yeah, maybe after following Fibershed, you know, we knew that we had to connect with Fibershed, and there was so much ringing true for that. All of those at all of those intersections that Sarah was just talking about. Ooh, I keep doing that too. Learning how to like navigate our own healthcare issues. You know, we were in the health system, kind of trying to figure that out. And then working on organic farms in the summer. You know, we were very up close and personal with our food system. So all of these things were kind of working together, and they're all very, you know, complexly woven. But we also found that with that crazy entanglement, that also means that there are so many entry points, right? Because it's all twisted together. So those are all the seemingly siloed things. Like the fashion industry is very different than the public school system, is very different than the healthcare industry, is very different than, you know, politics. But you know, any one of those things could integrate with another thing to help us understand more about that thing. You know, but also everyone wears clothing. So from our entry point for our experience and living in Ohio, you know, most people are not really thinking about where their clothes come from. So if there was ever an opportunity for teachers to teach, you know, we thought this would be it. So we started our own, we started the affiliate Rust Belt Fibershed. Yep. And, you know, we were making some headway here and there with presenting at fairs about Fibershed. And, you know, but we knew the best way to go about this was really project oriented, you know, opportunities for people to get connected in the long game, in the long term. So within our Fibershed, we our first project that we did was the Cleveland Flax project. And, you know, we set up a booth at one of those random festivals. And we knew from experience that folks wouldn't necessarily be drawn to just a booth with like some graphics on it. So of course we used natural dyes and natural color from our area to promote the booth and promote what we were doing. And again, it's just that entry point that pulled everyone in. So we were able to talk to people nonstop for 10 hours.
It was a very exhausting day, but
yeah,
it was wonderful.
But it was so worth it. And so the Cleveland Flax project was a community oriented project where we had 4 community days. Really, we had the seeding, or the composting day, actually, the seeding day, the harvesting day, and then we had some extra days after that, some processing days. And you can kind of see those on the screen here. But even when we had those days, you know, we'd throw in a dye pot. I think you can see it there on the left-hand side behind Linda here is spinning the flax that we grew. And there's I think a walnut dye bath going on back there. And, you know, that's again, just because it is like it is such an additional layer and this other way of thinking about something beyond just we grew some clothes and like now what, you know. It's a whole other layer, and it's so awesome. So you know, these events were just so fulfilling for us to get to know our community and have them see you know, with their own hands and their own eyes, and work with where our clothing comes from in a long-term project.
Yeah. And there's potluck food there. That was really good.
There's potlucks from now on at every event after COVID.
One day. So that was the Cleveland Flax project. Currently, and like Jess was just saying, projects for us have been a really wonderful way to get people engaged, because I think there's like these clear end goals. There's, you know, an entry point. You kind of know what you're getting into, as opposed to just like, I like Rust Belt Fibershed and I want to like participate. Like, this has been a really helpful way for us. And so one of the projects that we're doing right now is, and we partnered with Praxis Fiber Workshop here on the right, who is a local textile workshop, similar to TAC, if you're familiar with TAC. I'm sure there are others across the country, but we're just really fortunate to have them here in Cleveland with us.
And they've actually worked with Roland Ricketts, came out a couple years ago, last year, 2 years ago, to help them work on building a Sukimo indigo. So we have that resource in our fiber shed as well. And it's just, it's wonderful. But back to this 1 year, 1 outfit cohort project. This is a, we open it to the general public in our fiber shed to take about 1 year to create an outfit from soil to skin. And it's a community-based challenge to create a 3-piece outfit. That's how we're sort of defining an outfit, 3 pieces that are created entirely from material and talent within our Rust Belt Fibershed, which is 250 miles outside of Cleveland. And at the end of the year, there will be at Praxis Fiber Workshop, there will be hopefully we'll be able to have a fashion show with all of our participants. So this means that our community members are taking 1 year to create garments from the beginning of where a garment starts, the soil. So if you see this soil to soil, if you're familiar with Fibershed, this is a familiar graphic to you. It starts at the bottom with that compost, right? It starts with the soil, kind of goes up around the whole processing system to that t-shirt that you see there, the garments. And then hopefully, you know, our folks that are doing this, that are in our cohort, they'll wear those garments for a long time. They'll really value them. Hopefully they'll overdye them, they'll mend them. But when they're done, because they were created entirely in the soil to soil system, they'll be able to go right back into the soil and just be compost. And that's the soil to soil, sort of say it. Soil. That's the soil to soil cycle is that other word. And it can't happen when obviously our outfits are made out of like synthetic plastic materials. And so we're really seeing this as an opportunity for folks to kind of be like, I made this outfit and it's, you know, it's not made from any of those plastic materials. It's made from everything right here. So just a few goals. I'll share that with you in case you're interested of this project. The first goal is to provide a structure for imaginative, slow fashion to really thrive, to celebrate our incredible amount of local talent and production and resources.
People are coming out of the woodwork
that we have here in our fiber shed. The third one is to connect folks within the cohort to each other, but then also connect them to the larger community. So people are talking to farmers who maybe weren't recently talking to farmers. Farmers are talking to designers who maybe hadn't. So we're seeing all these connections start to happen. I think we may actually have some 1 year, 1 outfit members on the call, which is exciting. But yeah, trying to connect them through bi-monthly, we kind of set up bi-monthly Zoom calls to have a more of like a cohort experience. We have a Slack channel that will help create that community as well. And then, you know, ultimately the fourth goal is to create a collection of stories and a body of work that will provide a glimpse of our unique region and stewards, like how we're stewards of our valuable materials that we have here in this region. And we've been really floored so far with just the sheer level of creativity of this group. Awesome. You know, folks are using found fibers and they're talking about, you know, fantastic ways of different felting things that like, and resources are just being shared and knowledge is being shared. And it's just so wonderful to see. We had about 79 people come to the information sessions and ultimately around 48 people committed. We wanted to be sure that they were going to commit to this project. And some of them are working teams of 2 or 3 and it's great.
The cohort part of that too is really exciting. Because you know, they're bouncing ideas off of each other and it's true teamwork. Like building an outfit together is
So these 2 pictures here on the top, that's from our Cleveland Flax project. That is the flax being spun into fiber to bees for linen. And then on the bottom is alpacas from a alpaca farmer in our region. So those are like 2 fibers that we've featured in previous projects. And then on the right here, I talked about Praxis Fiber Workshop, our partner for 1 year, 1 outfit. This is an example of their indigo garden that they've had going where they're doing it's a community garden. And that's the indigo that they're using to put in their Sukimo compost pile. So, you know, there's a lot of opportunities for education in this project. We've, you know, cohort members have been offering up like, let's do a Zoom call on natural dyes. I'll lead it. You know, people are just kind of self-organizing and we absolutely love that. And, you know, we just really hope that this project can kind of give a structure for some of that, for some knowledge to be grown and shared and that sort of thing. And we're actually also finding out that people that, you know, and it was the same for us as well when we first started out, that like folks, maybe you've been an alpaca farmer your whole life and like, you know, fiber, you know, natural fiber, you know how to treat your alpaca as well. But you've been dyeing with synthetic dyes because it's just what you knew. And so even folks that are in the fiber industry are really like, oh, I didn't know that. There's just a lot of light bulbs going off. So yeah, I mean, I think that the origin stories that are going to be attached to some of these garments here are going to just be this great like conversation starters for our area. And part of the thing that we want to do here as well, I will mention, is that we're hoping to put together and we've already been talking to a couple of other fiber sheds about like, this is how we did this project. Here's all of the structures. Here's how we structured our cohort calls. Here's what we learned so you don't make the same mistakes that we did. And here you go. And hopefully you can do this project in your area. So, you know, if you're interested in that, that will be forthcoming as well. Yeah, so many good things. And this spring, we're also adding a Flax community grow project to this. So, you know, we'll be decentralizing the growing location of the Flax that we have now on a farm, and we're going to be encouraging people to grow it in their own yards and community gardens and school gardens, you know, with the idea that you'll be connecting to that fiber a little bit more and learning stewardship. And so throughout the season, you know, we'll be providing workshops on not just how to seed and grow and harvest flax and how to experiment with the fibers when it's done, but also on regenerative gardening, some soil health. And so it's going to be a really exciting project. I'm very excited for that one and for all the people who may join up with us. And we're also going to be doing some schools. Curriculum. Yes, and adding some natural dye plants to the package kind of for people who would like to grow natural dye plants along with the flax. And so because we're hoping to grow flax in school gardens, as I said, and vacant lots. And if we can grow some dye plants with that, it'll help to kind of complete that circle and add that extra layer that I was talking about earlier for people to understand. And like we found out, is just like people just love natural dyes. Yeah, like they're maybe growing flax, but they just love the flax is there, but then the flowers. Yeah. And you know, we're really hoping to use the school gardens for this as a way to really teach children about the materialism and the origin stories of our clothing, fiber, and the color of our clothing. And so, you know, we're focusing on school curriculum. We're also teaching about plastic microfiber pollution in our fiber shed, and we're going to do a citizen science protocol with some kids and a closet survey, just very similar to what California Fibershed has done, but only with K through 12 kids. You know, and so again, the whole time that we've been doing these projects too, we're still working in public education. You know, so I'm bringing natural dyes into the classroom as an English teacher. It's actually quite easy to weave in the idea of plant color in so many unexpected places. And that's actually the point that we're trying to make here too, that we're going to circle back to, is that natural dyes is that entry point for so many important discussions. In my experience with teaching natural dyes to high school students, of course, it's really wonderful to see their reactions. As you can imagine, you know, when you yourself first experience natural dyes, it's really, really shocking and cool. But what's really interesting is actually, you know, the reactions from a logwood dye with high school students. While they love it, while it's like, wow, look at those purples, you know, when we go outside to pick the goldenrod and then bring it in and put it in the dye pot, and they see that yellow come out of there, you know, they love the purples from the logwood, but it's that curiosity of the place that asks them make more questions about the goldenrod. It's like hyper local. It's so cool. You know, it's bringing a new relationship to something that someone may have thought of as flat or only good for one thing, overlooked, right? Or like even garbage or compost or whatever. So, you know. And just a little side note for those of you who sometimes might feel hopeless when it comes to climate change, we do have to say here that if you don't work with kids right now, or if you're isolated to the adult world, or even just your own children, I have really good news for you that you know, this school age generation is on fire, and they are seeing, you know, what isn't working, and what has only been working for a select few, and they're really interested in doing things differently. So there is so much hope in this future generation, you know, and that obviously doesn't take the responsibility off of us older folk, but it's our responsibility to do what we can to steward their knowledge and, you know, provide that platform for them to, you know, experiment with and be creative with their own inquiry of the origin stories of things, and where people come from, and where colors come from, and where fibers come from, and where they're going, you know, and there's so much more possibility and really just integration of all of these parts, and they're very curious about it. So as long as you give them the opportunity, they're curious about it. So, you know, it's actually kind of interesting to me just to think about how much I wanted to get out of public education. When we first started natural dyeing, and, you know, we were like all in on the arts world, and we're like, this is what we're gonna do. You know, but it seems as though we stayed in what we had to for a very specific purpose. And you know, I'm very thankful actually that we had that opportunity to integrate, and I feel very blessed that we don't have to look at ourselves as teachers and compartmentalize as much anymore, but that we can weave all of those things together and integrate it in such a beautiful way that seems so incredibly purposeful and a healthier experience for us and for our students and everyone.
So that brings me back. I'm going to circle back. Yes, this is cogs. These are pictures of cogs. Right now, Jess is talking about, you know, public education and kids, and there's hope. And the major container for those children right now is our public school system. And we started this chat kind of telling you a little bit about that. But very much like the textile system, very much like the healthcare system, very much like the food system, right? The educational system feels a bit more like a standardized machine than maybe a flexible, resilient living system, we could say. I don't really see that playing out in generally the actual educational system. Individual classrooms, sure. And so while we are literally bringing, you know, Fibershed projects like the topics of natural dye into the curriculum for science and art, and, you know, closet survey curriculum for like thinking about microplastics and thinking about these systems, we're bringing these topics in, and we're you know, going through an inquiry process with kids. We're also thinking about like the nested systems and how they're more broadly connected to all of each other. And particularly in education with the human teacher and the human students, you know, not the cogs, and how the connection to community and earth, and how that actually will just like rise all boats, right? And it's about recognizing the ways that where the educational, you know, industry has been just that, an industry instead of an ecosystem. And we do have a podcast on this called Regenerative Ed, where we break down our thoughts on how to reframe this as people who work in public education from a system that's mechanized to one that's living and thriving and integrated and whole. And that doesn't just go for education, that goes for all of our systems. We're not just bringing, you know, the topics of fiber or dyes into our classes, we're bringing in the magic and the meaning and the spirit of natural dye, that this is it's a tangible representation of what it means to be a living system in a world that really wants us to be mechanized, because maybe it's like cheaper or easier, it's more controllable, it's more predictable. And the main thread in all of these systems, like we said, you know, the fiber, the food, the ed, the healthcare system, all of it, is that they're created like machines. And there's a really good book on this called, you know, The Call of the Reed Warbler, if you've read it. That was like my first dive into this kind of understanding of like the organic mind versus the mechanical mind, and what our culture has to say about that. And Jess and I realized that the more that we learn about different things, you know, seemingly like disconnected things, the more integrated that we can become. And, you know, we may teach a natural dye class and we'll incorporate some meditation, and we may be teaching high school teachers with plant color experiments and herbalism tips, and then we'll do some like dancing and poetry. Is there dancing at the end of this? I don't know. And we'll teach students about, you know, permaculture practices, but like let's sprinkle in a little bit of breath work, and then sprinkle in some color and natural dyes. And I think just all these through lines are really beautiful, and we hope that they create permission for folks who feel like they're just staying in their lanes, that they don't have to. And it took us a long time to realize that. And if we can help other people break that down a little bit faster, man, would that feel good. So yeah, you know, while Rust Belt Fibershed for us right now is entirely volunteer work, you know, Drift Lab and Grounded Teaching, which is our education project, are, you know, for-purpose projects.
And we hope to steward, the profits that come from that, if profits, but towards land, water, and air. And Jess is going to kind of finish us up here. Yeah. So just, I guess, something to add here, just a little headline is that, fiber and natural dyes, and, even our Drift Lab project, it doesn't have to just be for fiber people or just for artists. And we can have this unique position given our role in public education for the two of us. But, this kind of goes for everyone, to make plant color accessible for everyone. And, it can be appreciated by everyone, right? Natural dyes is that perfect entry point, once again, that's rooted in inquiry and creativity. And it's a killer metaphor for complex, cyclical learning, ever changing. It's quite possibly imperfect a lot of the times, and helps us really contemplate our relationships with the living world. Yes. We love this work tremendously. Yeah. So our info's on the screen here, and if you're a teacher, please reach out to us. We would love to connect with you. We also have a plant dye workshop coming up in April that is basically a metacognitive workshop to teach teachers natural dyes as a part of an integrated system. That's at our website, driftlabtextileco.com. And, that will have the standards and all that hubbub for K through 12, science, math, English, history, all of that. So if you're a teacher thinking of cross-curricular project, or a homeschool parent, or your kids are homeschool parents, or just anybody who's interested in thinking about it. So we'll be providing that information. But and we're always down for collaboration. If if you haven't synced up with your closest Fibershed yet, you can get great information from Fibershed's website. If you're like, hi, kind of new to this concept of a Fibershed, you can go to Fibershed and find the affiliate in your area. There's probably one, and start plugging into it. So many Fibersheds, and I know Amy can attest to this, are doing really wonderful things, and would just be really happy to have people who are invested in that sort of soil to soil cycle for their fiber. All right, I think that's it. Amy, questions?
What questions?
No questions.
Looking at the chat. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Let me just
no,
write
you
it
were
down.
so comprehensive. People were
And then
good. Thank you so much, Sarah and Jess. That was fantastic. So Amy's now going to take the reins and go through the chat.
And you guys can stop your share too. So
okay, cool.
Spotlight you.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm glad that somebody got the name of that book. So it's called
The Call of the Reed Warbler.
The Reed Warbler.
Yeah. I'm going to put it on.
Charles Massey.
Here, it's up there.
Okay.
The Reed.
So lots of questions about, hold on, I'm going to spotlight you guys. Where are you? There you are. I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can look at you. Okay. So everybody's asking, a lot of people are asking about education and wondering, do you teach full-time with all your other community activities, which is insane.
Yeah, we do. So a couple of things about that. Sure. Well, first of all, there's two of us, which is different than just one of us. And we kind of have a very similar brain since we're twins. It's very easy to bounce ideas off of each other and shake things out. So there's a filter there that probably makes things go a little bit more quickly. Faster, yeah. But also it's been COVID. So, a lot of other commitments have kind of dwindled, leaving a little bit more space. And actually these side projects give us so much energy. Yes. And we really feel them so deeply in our bones that, we want to do them. It's not so much a matter of trying to find the time. Well, it is. but it's energizing. I think and also, once you start integrating hobbies, it's really kind of, I don't know, lends more, you have a little bit more time, because I'm using what I did in, yesterday we gave a pitch for our Flax project, and that's part of, what we're talking about here today. And when I teach natural dyes, that's a thing that I love to do, that I was preparing for something else. And so when you start integrating these ideas, it doesn't seem like we're doing three separate things. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so people are asking definitely about the flax, and so the Katie Smith, your work with linen is so cool. Are you producing enough linen to make and sell a final product, or are you supplementing your linen with purchased flax from Europe right now? So there's a couple questions on that. Like, are you growing quite a bit of it? Do you sell it? What's going on with it right now?
So right now, that project, since there really is no mechanized way to process flax for linen in the United States at scale, not really by hand. There are a few folks that are working on machinery. There's a few, we were on a panel a few weeks ago that was funded by Patagonia that there are some projects that are further along than us. So if you're interested in this, Chico Flax to linen, you could Google them and see what they're doing.
And they're also, the webinar that we presented on last week, it's up on their website, Chico Flax. And
Yeah,
you can watch
so if you want a quick snapshot of who's doing what with flax and linen in this area, or just generally
in the nation,
in the world, actually, at a small scale, at a local scale, because I think that's the important thing to think about here is that everybody that was on that panel that they're recording up, Google Chico Flax to linen, they're trying to do it in a more localized, regionalized way. However, that machinery is still all in flux. It's not really producing anything at scale yet. People are working with universities and engineers and trying to figure out how to really make this happen. And folks are at different places along the way. For us particularly, for us particularly, we have just been hand processing, which if you've ever hand processed linen, it's not enough to actually create a product yet. So the goal of the Cleveland Flax
to create a product, yes, but not a product to sell.
Correct. Yeah, we won't have yardage. It would be extremely expensive if we had yardage. It would be like for auctioning off to raise money to buy something, to buy some flax processing.
You guys, is that the, I know the talk that you're talking about that with Chico Flax and linen, I know Western Mass Fibershed was on that too, but was it through Fibershed or was it?
It was through just Chico Flax.
Chico Flax, I think, got a grant
from Flax. Okay, I just want to make sure I get the link to everybody.
Yeah, it's called the United Nations of Flax, and it's on their website, Chico Flax. Yeah,
I think it might be, the recording might be out there, but we could get the recording.
It is on there. It is on there.
It's on there.
Okay.
We'll get a roundup of the links and stuff. I know Brees was asking too about a link for your podcast. So is that, is that on the Fibershed, your Fibershed?
No, page? that's on a different, so like that's on our.
We'll just get them all. We'll get it.
More focused towards education. It's called Regenerative Ed is the podcast. But that one is more like if you're focused, if you're thinking about the public school system and how it could be a living ecosystem modeled after that instead of modeled after an industrial system, because we have to model it after something. We should go for an ecosystem.
I'm just scrolling through all the chat questions because a lot of people are thanking you for just bringing up that the idea of education and kind of textiles and dyes and I can't believe somebody's actually just coming in right now. I just see.
You missed it.
What?
I saw there was a comment on the Netherlands, the mini mills. They were also part of that webinar. So the Linen Project was also on that webinar that's posted on Chico Flax's website.
And there was somebody, I just went past there was somebody, I think in Southwest Ontario, and they were just wondering, does your Fibershed, are they in your radius?
It technically is, although we have yet to
really connect that way because it's above the Lake Erie. So, but there's, what Fibershed is, I feel like there is a Fibershed that connect, maybe not yet, maybe a little farther over.
Yeah.
There's also the Great Lakes Fibershed, which is doing some work with Canada. They're a little bit further up Michigan. And so, in the Detroit area. And
we all work together.
We overlap, right? Like you could have your own Fibershed if you own an animal and you create your own clothing, right? So like, it's not, there aren't hard lines. But it's good to know who's around so you can get plugged in.
And Cornelia Gilbert, yes, there's a New England Fibershed and I run it, sister. So, all right. Kathy wanted to know, is the Ohio area a historical flax growing area? And what led you to choose flax? Kathy Hattori is wondering.
All right. Well, we have a
so think about assets, right? Like that's how we like to approach it. We have lots and lots of alpaca here, like a crazy amount of alpaca, more than any other state. We also have a good amount of wool. So a lot of protein fibers that are great for cold weather, which we have a lot of. But in the summer, we don't have, and we don't really have a fiber that would be good for summer wear. So if we're thinking about, really making a local system, cotton doesn't grow here. Hemp is still like, being regulated and all that sort of thing. And so linen really it is. And we'd also done some research about where these seeds would grow the best. Where does the linen plant grow the best? And wonderfully, because of our positionality on the Great Lakes, we have typically grows the best at like the 45th parallel. We're a little bit lower than that. But because of where we are in the Great Lakes, it creates this wonderful microclimate that helps it to grow pretty well here. And so we've had really good results with growing the flax for 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
And historically, there have been farms in the early 1900s. There are records of a few farms around that had linen production, but it wasn't a major linen industry, unlike what you'll find in the Pacific Northwest, where fiber revolution is bringing back the linen industry to that area. Many people grew flax here for their families is kind of the history that we've seen. So it was a very small scale, but we weren't big linen producers. We were very big. I mean, we're the Rust Belt Fibershed. So our major industry was always steel and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where the focus went, but flax does grow beautifully here. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 1 o'clock, Kathy Hattori.
OMG.
OMG.
Here we go. Well,
we've got,
Sarah, Jess, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was like really great because what I loved is the fact that you're really concentrating on connectedness and you're also concentrating on the runway, right? Because for those of us who've been doing natural dyes for a while, we just kind of start at the place we know and we go from there. But you're looking at it and saying, if I have people or an audience who aren't quite connecting the dots, how do I connect the dots? That's fantastic. I think that we need much more of that. And I'm really happy that you're working in that area. I'm really interested in the flax stuff. That's fantastic. I know we have we either have a hemp or a flax organization here, right?
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest Fibershed actually has, is Shannon Welsh, and she has Fiber
Revolution.
Doing some amazing things.
I almost said elevation.
Somebody asked about flax seeds.
Yeah,
I saw them somewhere.
We're ordering flax seeds from Fiber Revolution. Has the
okay, great. All right.
Oh, I'll put that link in the video too, so you guys can check
so we can start getting really interested in flax.
flax.
Let me start wrapping up because we are at time.
Oh my gosh.
But thank you again. That was really
thank you. Thank you.
Invigorating, energizing, asking questions kind of presentation. I loved it. Okay, so back to what's going on this week and next. We just opened up a new workshop with Sasha Durer, and that will be for spring equinox. So it'll be Saturday, March 20th and Sunday, March 21st. It's plant tones. So we're going to be doing the same processes that we did in the winter class, where you're going to be working with dyes and getting 4 different colors from each dye stuff, depending on mordant variables and different things, as well as foraging. So we'd love to have you join us if you're interested in that. We also have a donation page for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and we're taking donations to support them as the growing season starts. So this year, Botanical Colors is working with a number of independent growers, and we're trying to make sure that they're getting the support they need in order to grow dye flowers for us. So we're really excited about that. We'd love to have you help contribute. What else? Oh, I wanted to just mention in terms of Fibershed and Black History Month, Fibershed, the mothership, which is what I call it, the one in Northern California, actually just sent out a newsletter yesterday about honoring Black fiber systems. And Amy, I'm sure you can link to all of that information. But they are going to be showing the live stream of 3 growers and farmers who were on a panel back in November and talked about farming, basically farming while Black, and what is driving them, what are they doing, challenges, inspirations. It's fascinating. So I would recommend that you take a look at that. They're also linking to a podcast called The Root, which talks about origins of fibers and fiber practices in the United States and what the role of African Americans, enslavement, and colonialization is. So it's also a very interesting session. I believe there's a whole bunch of different podcasts associated with it, and it's moderated by Dominique Drakeford. All right, next week, Amy, put those eyebrows down. Next week, we'll be talking with Ayobami Adeyemo. Ayobami's a textile researcher that we met with the MICA project, and he's studying and experimenting with different dye stuffs and textile making processes. He's worked on the indigo shade map team to research and study different plants which produce indigo all over the world. And right now he's managing his own personal project dubbed Oremi, which is Yoruba for my friend, as a means of learning more about natural dye processes and communication through textiles. So don't miss that. Next week, Ayobami Adeyemo, and very interesting, and waiting to hear about that. I think that's it that I have. Amy, anything else?
Well, the RSVP is already up because I'm on the ball this week.
There
and
we
as soon as I
go.
get the video link for this, it's ready to hit publish too. You'll have it all today. No, maybe
Excellent.
yeah,
right.
And then big news: botanical colors is in vogue today. Very exciting. How to investing in
Style.
it's about investing in things like natural dyes and farmers and stuff. So Kathy has a quote in this Vogue investing article. I'll have it up on social media today so you guys can check it out. But exciting, next level with natural dyes getting in vogue. Very fancy, Katie. Yes.
Does that mean we're supermodels?
Kathy, if you don't know that already, I mean, I don't know how long.
There's always a height issue with me.
I love standing next to you with the height differential. That's good. All right. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
All right. Well, let's unmute and everybody say hello,
unmute,
hello, hello.
Remove spotlight from Kathy so we can
remove the spotlight so we can see all of you.
The spotlight.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Thank you,
Oh, Cece, that looks nice.
Thank you, Sarah.
No.
Bye. Bye.
Hi, Amy. Bye, Kathy. Total supermodel.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, Jess. Thanks so much. And
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Hi, Betty.
Thank you so much.
And I missed your dance today, but I do think we should do a dance troupe and a chorale.
Let's start with the chorale.
I can start dancing.
Okay.
Oh,
Do it.
You do it first.
Like a what were you gonna say, Helen?
You do it first.
Okay.
Feedback Friday.
You guys get more and more carried away every week.
That's what we're here for.
And pretty soon we're gonna be in the ozone. That sounds good. And then break past that. It's gonna be nice.
Absolutely.
Well, this is
because
great.
of the lockdown, we had a long time that we didn't have a party, so now I want to dance.
Absolutely.
All right, just a
No
moment.
parties.
Let me put on some music.
But this is like a party.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seriously,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
This is
You're so welcome.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you and have a nice day, everybody.
You too, Betty.
Cece, are you going to show
Thank
us that
you.
background
Bye-bye.
again?
Oh, no, forget the background. I got something better than the background.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
old. That's real. Matter of fact, some of that indigo might have come from you back in the 90s or something.
Yeah, maybe.
So this is what I want to show you. I did this a few weeks ago. This is from fresh indigo that we picked at the Textile Center, probably September, October. I still have that stuff alive in my basement.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's challenging. I added my own Sukamo to it finally, but so this has not been washed out yet, and it's linen. But
Beautiful.
that came out of the leaves of the fresh indigo, and it's still okay. I got an old folks heating pad on it, and I have to feed it like a newborn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going through, but it's living, and it's probably the lightest vat I've ever worked with. This is a month's worth of dips.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there's not that much indigo in there. I'm getting every bit of it out.
Yep.
On blue of nothingness.
Yep. Blue of
But yeah.
nothingness.
Nothingness.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It
Beautiful.
really is. So but like I said, this stuff, this may have come from you a long time ago. I don't know.
It's beautiful. I like that.
Long time ago.
Looks great. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cece.
Thank you. And back to work.
All right.
And just so you guys know, we do. Kathy usually just needs to. She'll bail and leave
I'll
me.
bail, make you host, and I'm going to stop the
I
recording.
hang out here for a while. If anybody wants to show projects or talk about something they're doing or ways that we can help support you, or you just want to be silly, I'm here. I'm here for you.
Amy, I'm curious. Are you wearing a repeal
I am.
from Santiago Atitlan, huh?
You know, I got it from this woman, and Kathy was asking me the name of the company I got it from. It was these two women that go and travel, and they had the most beautiful repeals, like a whole
Right.
rack of.
I love repealed, but I think it's from
really supposed to be
Santiago
hung up.
Atitlan. They're the ones that do the birds, and that's the one across the lake from Panajachel.
Yeah, I'm gonna go crazy that I forgot the
But that's
name of
okay.
them. It's like the
Cultural
tip of my
cloth?
tongue. What's
Is
that?
Is it cultural cloth from Wisconsin?
No, they go. They're I
There's
think
also
they do
one up-
consulting as well as sell. They work with artisans.
there's
and
one
helping-
out of Midland, Texas, too. I can't remember what the name.
I
of
met
that
these
one is.
I met these two women in Brooklyn. They're definitely they're based in New York. That's where their company was based. But yeah, this is supposed to really be hung up. But I swear to God,
Oh no,
I'm
wear
so
it.
tired of
Wear
my
it.
clothes.
I
I'm
wear
pulling
'em.
everything out.
And when you're in Guatemala, and if you're with, they're wonderful to wear. I wear them with a turtleneck, or I wear them in the summertime.
Yeah. No, I definitely I love this. It's funny, like I don't buy tons of clothes. I dye tons of clothes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just kind of give new life to old clothes. But even my clothes during the pandemic, I've given new life to. I can't even
Right.
stand them. I wish we could all have a clothing swap because
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm serious. Like I don't know if my mom's still here, if she took off, but we made these necklaces. Like,
yeah, I wanted to know about that too.
Yeah,
Is that textiles?
it's just t-shirts, and I cut strips.
Oh, t-shirts. Oh,
And then knotted,
Breeze
probably.
Honeycutt, there she is. Breeze Honeycutt taught me how to make them, but it's really Alabama Shannon, an Alabama
Okay.
Shannon necklace. But this is just onion peels I saved during the pandemic. So it's my pandemic necklace in more ways than one.
Can you show detail, please?
Oh. Okay.
yes, can you?
I don't know. So something I learned from doing this, I think I'm going to do another one, but let's see. Can you see it?
Let's see. Are they? Oh,
They're
they're
like-
knots.
Talk
They're
some more,
little
Amy, so we can see it.
knots. Yep. And you,
Well,
Oh,
They're
hold it
really
now, I
long.
can see it.
You have to show and talk because otherwise
Right.
someone else is coming in view.
I take it they make strips, and then you make the strips out of the cotton t-shirts like you do the They make a yarn or something out of
Yeah,
t-shirts
yep,
where you
yep.
cut it and you pull it and
Yes.
then they tie it. Not, oh, that, well, it's
We
wonderful.
missed it,
Yeah.
Amy,
What's that?
because you weren't talking and showing at the same time. We couldn't see the detail.
Oh, sorry, guys. Did you want me to show you it up close
Please.
again?
Talk
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
show.
put it up close.
Okay, all right. So here we go. Here we go. So these are all little
There,
knots
that's good, right there.
right
Yeah.
there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all knots.
Everybody should mute because I keep losing her.
All right, I'm gonna spotlight myself. You ready? Hold on.
There we go.
Great. Whoa, I'm really larger than life here. Okay, so here we go again. I see what you guys are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You see this? Now all I can see is myself instead of.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
but
good.
you see this right here, this resist
Oh, yeah.
white? So I learned a lesson. So my lesson to you is cut the strips, put the strips in your color, then make the t-shirt necklace.
Got it.
Because then you won't have the resist. You'll just
Amy,
have
are you reading the chat message from me?
whoa, thanks, Sasha. Yes, Kathy, I will do that.